Hi, this is Erica from Glover Nursery, and I'm going to talk about the difference between frost, freeze, and hard freeze, and the seeds and vegetables that need protection. There are a lot of gardeners who don't really understand the difference between a freeze date and a frost date, and so I wanted to define what they are and talk about the differences between them. So there are technically three different versions of cold damage. The first is frost, which can happen anywhere between 36 degrees going down to 32 degrees. And it's when the air is still and there's not really a breeze, no wind, and it's cold enough that the humidity or dew in the air can collect and freeze on the surfaces of plants. And the second version is either called a light freeze or just freeze, and it's when the temperatures are anywhere between 32 degrees Fahrenheit going down to 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's when there is not a wind, when there is a wind and the air is cold enough that the water that's inside the plant cells can crystallize and burst and create that damage from inside the plant rather than on the outside with the frost. And then the third version is a hard freeze, and that's when the temperature is at 28 degrees or lower for 2 or more hours, or when the temperature gets to 24 degrees or colder at any point, even if it's just for a short time. And that is the most damaging of the three. With a frost, usually it's just the tips of the plants, the tender growth that's damaged. With a regular freeze, it can be the stems, but usually it's limited to above ground damage. And when it's a hard freeze, it includes the soil freezing. So not only will you have damage above ground, probably complete kill, you also will have root damage, and you probably won't have recovery of any kind. So another question that we're often asked by gardeners is what to do in case of these freezes or frosts when they are eager to get their vegetables out into the garden. There are lots of different ways to protect your plants. You can take buckets and turn them over, invert them over the top of the plants. You can, in fruit trees, string Christmas lights through the trees because the incandescent bulbs can keep the blossoms warm. You can cover with frost cloth. We carry a brand called DeWitt Insulate, and it's a thick but breathable material that can be laid over either in rows or over a tree like this to help reduce airflow and keep the temperature just a little bit warmer where the plants are. And then when it's a tomato, for example, people are often familiar with Walls of Water or other brands of a similar product. We have one that's just called Plant Protector, but it's basically the same thing where you fill water in these tubes in a circle around a plant, and the water heats up over the course of the day and then radiates back toward the plant over the cold nights to keep them warm enough and not damaged from the freeze. There is also a product called a hot cap, again under several different names, but it's a pre-formed piece of thick paper, has a texture almost like wax paper, and it looks like a round cap, and you just set it over these tender plants. In any of these things, you will want to anchor them in case of wind so that you don't have these protectors blow away. So the Walls of Water with the water in the outside they tend to be the most protective of these options because the water takes a lot of the sun's energy to warm up over the course of the day. And when it radiates back toward the plant, it offers almost like a little bit of a furnace over the night and puts that heat back toward the plant. The others just do a little bit of buffering and wind protection, but you wouldn't want to use something like a hot cap really early in the season. It won't give you as much protection as something like a wall of water would. So there are a number of vegetable crops, leafy greens, root crops that can be planted by seed, direct sown outside in the soil, and a lot of those are tolerant of these freezes and frosts. Many of the seed packets will actually indicate that on the botanical interest. It's here on this side. But these plants you don't necessarily need protection for, although you may have a better plant, a healthier plant, if you do offer protection from those really extreme hard freezes. Another group of plants are those that are very sensitive to the frost, and these are the plants that either must have protection from frost and definitely hard freezes, like tomatoes. They really don't handle that hard freeze temperature. But then there are some that are even more tender, like peppers, melons. Those you have to wait until the last frost or last freeze in order to even put them outside. Otherwise, you are guaranteed to lose the plant in the extreme cold temperatures. If you have any questions about freeze versus frost and which plants need protection, ideas for things that you can put outside now at the end of February or going into March, or things that you'll need to sow indoors, please come stop by the nursery. We are very happy to help.